Hello class, and welcome to our new and improved Kung-Fu Heroes NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and this is a solid title from Culture Brain, very difficult title. In fact, as you can see the Uni-Gon making short work of both our demo players. They have not attended this class for what it's worth, but in terms of difficulty, I'm going to give Kung-Fu Heroes for the NES a 7 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to punching a hole through the wall. Possibly a maxed out punch, something Blaze is going to talk about in his items guide upcoming, but yeah, this game can certainly make you want to punch a hole through the wall in those final stages in particular where it just gets nearly impossible, but don't worry, we've got all the tips to get you prepared, show you how to survive. Fluff has more facts than ever to share about Kung Fu Heroes once we get into it, but speaking of Fluff, this was one of the first ever games we covered here on Video Games 101 back in the early days, years and years ago, and this was actually the game which inspired our now retired, recently retired, Rescue the Princess trope list. So if you want to jump ahead and get right into the Kung Fu Heroes NES walkthrough, we have a timestamp right at the top of the description of this video, but for posterity's sake, we're going to run that short exchange between Fluff and myself from years ago, which inspired our long-running Rescue the Princess trope list. What's the objective in this game? I mean, I know we're like beating up dudes and stuff, but what's the overall goal? They don't really give you any idea at the start of the game.
Yeah, let me pull up the manual right quick. It says Kung Fu Heroes is a comical animated Kung Fu action game. Your journey to save Princess... we're saving Princess Min Min.
Ah, jeez, the save the princess trope again?
In the game's defense, it wasn't nearly as much of a trope in the mid-'80s when this game came out.
That's true. It's just, I feel like we haven't done many of these classes yet, but I feel like we've saved a princess, or at least a female in most of them.
I could check it out and put something together right quick. I'm pretty good with vectors, graphics, software.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just curious.
Okay. Do you want me to limit it to games where the ultimate goal is to rescue someone, or should I include games where one of the objectives as you go is to rescue someone?
I guess the latter, because I'm thinking of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which we did our first class on, and the initial objective was to rescue April, so yeah, include those two.
Okay, and here it is.
Good lord, this is what, only our 7th class? So 5 out of the 7 games we've played?
I guess that's why they call it a trope.
I can't. I'm putting my foot down, Fluff, alright? Unless this Princess Min Min is the most visually striking princess I have ever seen in a video game, we're not playing this one today.
Hold on, I think I got a picture right here.
Alright, they got lucky. Alright, as we begin a new game, let's take a look at the controls for Kung Fu Heroes for the NES. Punch with A, do jump kicks with B, but the main thing of note is the distinction between moving and not moving when you do certain moves. So when you're moving and you hit B, that's a jump kick. When you're stationary, you'll use one of your finite miracle kicks. And then A and B, when you're moving, will equip the sword. When you're stationary, it will call in your temporary invincibility, which you will spend money to call in, but Blaze will talk about that. As we take a look now at the Briggs notes for this Kung Fu Heroes NES walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. First, hit every block on every screen to get all the power-ups, or even better, just follow along and we'll show you which blocks to hit to get all the power-ups, but Blaze will be in just a moment to talk about the many power-ups and why they matter. Number 2, only attack isolated enemies to make sure that you don't get surrounded, and as an extension of that, use the miracle kick, which is, again, just stationary, and then hit that B button. Again, we have a finite number of these, but that helps you escape danger. It's a much longer, farther, faster jump kick than your standard one, which you do while moving around and hitting B. So the objective on every stage is to defeat enough enemies to open the doors at the top of the screen so that we can move on to the next stage. Perfect timing. Note that once those doors open, the enemies will become quite a bit faster, and throughout the course of the stage, the enemies will get faster as well. So certain enemies are invulnerable to certain types of attacks. For instance, that floating viper we just attacked and destroyed can only be killed with a jump kick, so keep that in mind. So that opening right there, the staircase we just triggered with that key, that leads to our first warp zone in this game. That'll take us to the 5th or 9th level overall, our choice out of the 32, but generally recommend against skipping the warps just because you miss out on more easily collecting some valuable items, but there it is. For what it's worth, there's a cap on the money that you can collect at $6. It's kind of ridiculous. We think of Legend of Zelda $2.55, but not $6 in this game. Speaking of which, let's bring in Blaze to give us an overview of just the basic items we've been picking up here in Kung-Fu Heroes.
It's Blaze's best here in Item Sky. Alright, let's talk about the items you can find either just from popping on the screen or from punching around, hitting blocks, hitting in the right spot. Sometimes they're hidden, but first, the question mark. This will either give you $1 or reset your total back to 0. As the professor said, Kung Fu masters are only trusted with $6 max. So once you have $6, avoid these altogether. Next, the E's. If you get 5 of these, you get a 1-up. The 1-up, it's worth a 1-up, duh. And then the boxes, as either a power-up to make your punches more powerful, or an item which we'll talk about a little bit later. The key opens a secret area on that stage. The G, this will make your punches shoot fire for roughly 13 seconds, giving you some range attack right there. And then if you summon in the P, this is invincibility for roughly 13 seconds. Make good use of those 13 seconds, game player.
Thank you very much, Blaze. So the final stage in every block of 4 has the closest thing we have in this game to a boss, so let's get some tips on dealing with them now with our resident boss expert, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters. Alright, just one boss to really mention here in Kung Fu Heroes, the Uni-Gon. And it's rare when I advise you to stay away from a boss class, but that is what I'm advising here in Kung Fu Heroes. When Uni-Gon appears on the screen, get the heck away, class. Just stay away using the teleports on the sides of the screen, or if you can't get to them or they don't exist, and maybe some of the later levels, just use your miracle kicks. It's worth it better than taking damage or getting killed. Who am I kidding? Alternatively, for the more adventurous members of our class, 5 hits in the upper body, if you've got the punch power level of 3 or higher, will take him down. You can also call in your invincibility, of course, in some cases, but yeah, I just recommend staying away. When he clears off the screen, bring in the normal baddies, take them down to move on.
Thank you, Gary. No, we uncovered that key there, but we're not punching it. If we did, it would open up a staircase to another bonus stage. Blaze mentioned that earlier, and we saw one in that first stage. It's a good place to earn some points, but more importantly, 5 E's to get yourself an extra life. I'm not worried about lives. Looks like we have the max right now at 9, so yeah, just hitting that and going down in there would just pad out this Kung Fu Heroes NES walkthrough, but want to mention that there's another one right there incidentally, so if you ever fall behind that 9 lives count, go ahead and hit the key and grab yourself an extra life by way of those E's. We've picked up a few items so far, though. You see we have a couple of those S's at the top, which we got, didn't mean to hit that, but which we got from those music boxes so far in those last few stages. Blaze, how about you give us an overview of the first half of the items which we can grab here in Kung Fu Heroes.
Alright, I mentioned you could pick up boxes to get items here in Kung Fu Heroes. Let's talk about the first few you'll generally find here in Kung Fu Heroes. First, the burgundy S on the white background. This weakens Mr. Coffin, makes him easier to kill. These are the speaker-looking guys. We have the white S on the burgundy background. This weakens the Medusa beam, those shots from those giant floating Medusa heads. The white scroll weakens the werecats. They're kind of the little vampire-looking heads that float around. Watch out for those, but when you have that, you can take them out more easily. And then the red scroll, that burgundy scroll, slows down the big man, Uni-Gon.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Note the giant lightning bolt which just came through. That's instant death, unless we have a particular item to reflect that, which we'll get a little bit later. Sometimes they'll come in at random, sometimes defeating an enemy will trigger it to show up, so just keep that in mind, but There's the Uni-Gon lumbering about, and you can see we use one of our miracle kicks right now, and we're doing pretty well in banking those miracle kicks. Haven't been using them too much. I like to use them again more as a defensive move rather than an offensive move, just getting us out of danger. Sometimes using it to get to the exit when all heck is breaking loose on the screen. But we are now 1/4 the way through this game. It just gets more difficult from here, class, but here we are on 3-1. And you'll see we're picking up a lot of those kind of music boxes, or however you want to describe those, and not getting anything out of it from what we can tell. Essentially, it's usually just a punch upgrade, but we maxed out at 3, so, you know, if you're dying, if you have a +1 and they need those punch upgrades, then you can go ahead and get those. That key is for yet another bonus room, so again, if you need an extra life, hit that key and go on down the stairs. But we're moving on now to 3-2. If we had taken the warp that was in stage 1-2, we would have the choice of going to 2-1 or 3-1, so that would have popped us out on that last stage. Now here in 3-2, there is yet another warp zone where we can jump ahead either to stage 4-1 or 5-1, I believe. We just got a couple very useful items early on here in 3-2. Let's go back to Blaze, and there's the entrance of the warp zone, by the way. Let's go back to Blaze for an overview on the second half of the items that we can get in this game. Tell us a bit about some of the ones we just picked up. Blaze?
Alright, let's talk about the rest of the items here in Kung Fu Heroes, starting with my item, my weapon of the game, the sword. Once you have this, you can tap A and B together to produce this sword. Does a lot more damage against most of the enemies in this game. Recommend having that out all the time. The mirror, this protects us against the bolts and beams so long as you're facing them. The ball right here, that gold ball, this weakens the golem, those statues. We have the item which, this little trinket, slows down the dragon enemies. And then finally the necklace allows you to see otherwise invisible coffin enemies. Again, those speaker looking guys, but there you go. The items you can find via those little boxes here in Kung Fu Heroes.
Thank you, Blaze. And just to clarify again, you need to be moving and hitting A and B together to pull out that sword. Otherwise, doing it stationary, that will call in that invincibility for $6. So on this stage, there's just a couple instances of that break time screen in this game. But yeah, if you find it, you'll automatically get transported there by hitting that block. And it is what it sounds like. You need the sword to take down these dragon men, by the way. But yeah, it's just a chance to catch your breath, enjoy some lovely, calming, relaxing music, and see the hearts. You can press start to end that countdown prematurely, but yeah, very lovely. I remember the first time I found that, renting this game on a weekend or whenever it was, putting a lot of time into it, and then discovering that and thinking I had found something no one had ever seen before, and you know how kids are. I just thought it was pretty cool, but there you go. Yeah, it earns you a bunch of points, but outside of that, just a chance to catch your breath. And I think I'm going to go ahead and call in the P. So we hit A and B together, and you can see our $6 was spent. You can see all the enemies sped up right before I did that too. Taking a little too long, but yeah, this is the easy way to take down the Uni-Gon. Were some decent points right there, and you can see they start to flash. So now we gotta work our way back up to $6 again, but yeah, dangerous, and yeah, practice what I preach, not what I actually do, as I get in the bad habit of still collecting dollars, even after I'm maxed out at 6. I don't know why 6, but it's 6. And we're moving on to stage 4-1 now. Not quite halfway through the game, but coming up on it. Note that one-up that we collected right underneath that little lake there in the middle of the screen, that little body of water. Just a good idea in general to keep that sword out. There's typically no enemies in this game which are strong against the sword versus just your regular punches, so... And plenty of enemies like the Dragon Men who require the sword to defeat them, so... Good to pull it out. Looks like a giant banana that he's peeled and is holding it in his equally giant hand. Yeah, just the one hand, even though it doesn't really make sense because you should see his fingers going. It's like the hand is reversed or something. I don't know. Another bonus stage key right there if you're interested. And there's that scroll that Blaze mentioned to slow down the Uni-Gon ever so slightly, but again, if we run into Uni-Gon later on in the stage, he's going to be pretty fast regardless, but yeah, you'll see we're not even on the final of the block of stages anymore. He'll just start showing up on, 4-2 in this case, other stages here and there. Certainly the more indoor stages, more than the outdoor ones. Each one of these blocks of 4 stages, for what it's worth, has its own specific name. This is the Demon Cat's Castle, probably because we're starting to see the cat mages walking around. We got the were-cat, just those disembodied heads that float around that Blaze mentioned earlier with regards to some of the items, but moving on now to 4-3 here in Kung-Fu Heroes. And actually, while we're getting to 4-3 here, grabbing the gold ball right there. Just a reminder, as Blaze mentioned, that's to weaken the golem. They're like the statue-looking characters that you have typically at the end of castle stages. We'll have one on the next stage, or not one, we'll have a whole wall of them. Yeah, the sword works pretty well. Those are the Mr. Coffins right there. Yeah, they do look like just anthropomorphic speakers or speakers with arms and legs. And we got the different varieties too of the different enemies right there, the were-cats and the Medusa cats. The Medusa ones are pretty self-explanatory. They're the bigger disembodied heads floating around, but yes. So if we were staring at the lightning as it popped out, it would reflect and bounce back, not hurting any enemies unfortunately, but for what that's worth. And mind the projectiles, the ones from the cat mages, those will freeze you and in some cases kill you, but yeah, freezing you is bad enough as it leaves you open to taking damage from other enemies who are out and about. But anyway, let's go to Fluff and get our first fact about this game, now that we're already about halfway through this game, with our resident fact finder, Fluff.
This game was initially released as an arcade game in 1984 under the name Chinese Hero, or Super Chinese in Japan. It was ported out to the NES and released in North America many years later in 1989, and its arcade origins are likely responsible for the decent challenge level of the game. But the NES version has one notable advantage over the arcade version. You can continue as many times as you want after the game over screen. Simply hold down the A button when you hit start on the title screen, and you'll begin the first stage of the current castle, meaning the group of 4 levels that you are on when you die.
Thank you, Fluff. Yeah, that's a good way to keep your walls intact. And going back to referencing the difficulty of this game, should point out when you do come back, you won't have any money and your punch will be reset back to level 1, and your miracle kicks as well, but you'll have the items that you had. That's the important part. As we are more than halfway through this game, moving on to 5-2 now. Want to mention we have most of the treasures in this game by now. There's actually a new one in this bottom right block area. Grab that, but just opened up another warp area right there. So if you do want to jump ahead, maybe to 7-1, not going to caution against it at this stage. If you're looking good on lives, you've got all the items that we've collected so far, your punch is maxed out, you might not be in bad shape to jump ahead if you so choose. Of course, we're going to be showing you the entire game, and there's the G for this one as well. I want to point that out. I believe that might be the last warp in the entire game, though, so Just something to keep in mind as we move on to 5-3. There's a break time in that top leftmost block. For what it's worth, you'll find when you do pick up the fireball, the enemies will generally keep away from you. And there's the very relaxing break time. We get a bunch of points for showing up as well. Sometimes you can actually get in there and punch the hearts. But just nice to chill out for just a moment. And there's one more item we can find right there before we take off. That was the one that slows down the dragons, that potion right there. By the way, I'm not sure if Blaze mentioned this one or not, but the candle, I happen to know that reveals traps, which we wouldn't otherwise be able to see. So we got that a couple stages ago, but just wanted to mention that. But as we're avoiding the dragon, let's go to Fluff for another Fluff fact about Kung-Fu Heroes.
Kung-Fu Heroes is the first game in the Super Chinese series from developer Culture Brain. Subsequent titles in the Super Chinese series include Little Ninja Brothers, Ninja Boy, and Super Ninja Boy.
Oh wow, I loved Super Ninja Boy when I was a kid. I didn't know they were connected. Good call.
Yep, part of the series, and yeah, that was a good one. There are roughly a dozen titles in the Super Chinese series, which ran from this game in 1984 to Super Chinese Fighter EX in 1999. And the series included the odd action title, like this one, before largely becoming a role-playing series with Super Chinese 2, aka Little Ninja Brothers, and finally delving off into the fighting genre with its final few titles under the name Super Chinese Fighter.
Thank you, Fluff. Anyone play any games in that series? Yeah, I enjoyed Super Ninja Boy when I was a kid. I haven't thought about that game. Haven't played that game in a very long time. That'd be like 20 years, but there's a 1-up hidden right there for what it's worth. Also for what it's worth, and something I won't be trying because we haven't died yet. Probably just jinxed myself, but yeah, if you jump on top of those blocks in the lava, assuming that's lava, whatever it is, the red stuff will kill you. If you do manage to land on those blocks when they're all the way up out of that solution, then your score will flash and you'll get a nice bonus to your score. And I believe some more of those E-balls will pop out as well, giving you a chance to earn some more extra lives. But Uni-Gon, not being shy this time, coming out right away, and we're not being shy either right there. It's so satisfying, I have to say. Well, one, getting 2 Uni-Gons on 1 invincibility, but just love using that particular, well, the invincibility move. It's very choice, as we get a another bonus stage in there if you do need to grab an extra life. Just waiting out the Uni-Gon there at the top. Just as a general rule, I like to stay at the top of this stage midway through. This is a deceptively difficult stage relatively early on. So yeah, once you get close to the end of that 6-2 stage, I like to post up at the top and just get ready to take down your last enemy and make a beeline for that open door, because you know, once the enemies get fast in that one, there's something about the configuration of the room and just, I don't know, makes it extra dangerous. Just like 6-1, if you get on these moving platforms, in this case, just stand on them. You can ride them across, but you'll get another score boost right there. Getting a little dangerous. If we weren't working on a no-hitter, then yeah, I'd probably risk it, but just want to mention that is a thing. The red sky here, I don't know if it's day or night. I guess that would determine whether it's Sailor's Delight or if they should kind of hunker down and take warning. Just to butcher an expression. A lot going on here on 6-4. It's the odd, I mean, it seems like we're outside, but you do have the statues in the background, the golems. Yeah, the odd stage which doesn't take place in pitch black. Mind those Medusas and their projectiles. You don't have any protection for that. Be nice to have $6 in the bank for some of those later stages. And this is A little hairy. Use a miracle kick to close off the distance there. I didn't realize we've been hoarding as many miracle kicks as we have, but a lot of those music boxes have been giving us 5 spots of those. So we're now in the final quarter of this game here in 7-1. Watch out for the dragon heads. Again, we got to use the jump kicks on them, using the swords on the dragon men. Just guys casually walking around wearing dragon masks. So in the middle of this stage, you'll find a P which you can actually collect. You don't have to spend any money to get it, but I don't find this stage to be that difficult otherwise, so I'm not going to risk making a dangerous jump. That was kind of dangerous right there. You could have gotten a shot off, but yeah, one of those P balls was right there in the middle of that little island if you want to make a jump for it. There's a bonus room in this stage, so if you need an extra life, head on in there. Grab those E balls, those extra balls. Think about those bonus stages. There's only ever time to collect 8 of them all total, so even if you have a +1 with you, only one of you, if you're playing as co-op, can grab yourselves the extra life out of that. Nice co-op game though, I have to say. A little I mean, it's very dangerous. You'd have to have 2 very skilled players, but and not an easy game, hence the 7, but yeah, I like any game where you can work together on the NES, you know? So many titles where they pit you against one another, or sports titles where you couldn't necessarily be on the same team, so always appreciate that for the team building. Whether it's a sibling, a friend. As we move on to 7-4 here. The thing to mention about 7-4 is the hidden item, which is kind of just off center of the middle and about 1/3 down from the top. We'll grab it just as soon as we can shake this Uni-Gon. The final item, there's those beads, so now otherwise invisible enemies will be showing up. So very useful. But yeah, this is not an easy stage. A lot of enemies that are either impossible or just very difficult to kill, certainly safely, so I want to point out we can't even hurt the dragon heads that are floating around. This particular variety of them on this stage, so that's why I'm avoiding them at all costs. If you try jumping on them, you'll just get yourself killed. The only enemies that we can, and there we go, reflected one right there. It's just a reaction that I try to jump over it. You see a giant bolt of lightning coming at you at top speed. That's your natural reaction. But yeah, this is a fine stage if you do have it to use your invincibility on. Your power ball, as it were. Because you can just see it's chaos. The only enemies that we can safely take out reliably are the dragon men themselves, the ones walking upright. Pretty much everyone else we need to avoid at all costs in the interest of surviving here. Yeah, this is kind of madness. This is definitely one of the most difficult stages in this game. A lot of no death runs have gone off the rails here. And don't be too precious with your miracle kicks at this point in the game. But yeah, use that Briggs note of making sure the enemies that you do target are isolated. That was a gimme right there. The gold ball probably helped soften that a little bit. And yes, mentioned this earlier, but it's unfortunate the longer it takes you to clear out a level, the faster the enemies become. And it's getting a little chaotic here, considering this is one of the longest stages just because of the crop of enemies they send your way. I'm hoping we're close. Seems like we've been on the stage for a record long time, certainly for this particular playthrough. Oh goodness, alright. Miracle kick to... Oh. That felt good. That was tense. That'll get the blood pressure, the heart rate up. Let's celebrate our survival as we go into the final castle here in Kung-Fu Heroes, as we meet a whole crop of guys with bazookas, the gunmen, right here. But yes, as we enter the final castle, this is literally called the last castle, very appropriately. Let's celebrate by getting a Fluff fact, once again, with Fluff.
I mentioned earlier how the developer on Kung-Fu Heroes is Japanese developer Culture Brain. Culture Brain was founded in 1980 as the far less catchy and memorable Uni-Gon Game Corporation, and began developing arcade titles like Shanghai and Chinese Hero, the original arcade version of this game. In 1987, NGC rebranded themselves as Culture Brain and changed their focus entirely to console titles for the Famicom and NES, including Kung-Fu Heroes, Flying Dragon, Flying Warriors, The Magic of Shahrazad, and one of our favorites here on Video Games 101, the Baseball Simulator 1000 series. A lot of games we incidentally need to feature here on Video Games 101, wouldn't you say, Professor?
Most assuredly, yeah, maybe by the time someone sees this class, we'll have tackled some or all of those games, but yeah, some of those have definitely been requests, so.
It's been many years since they've released a new game, but they've rebranded themselves almost as many times as the number of series they've created. Again, renaming themselves as Culture Brain XL in 2016, before most recently rebranding one more time as Uni-Gon Game in 2021, coming full circle and referencing their name of 40 years earlier.
Thank you, Fluff. By the way, this is another one of those deceptively, extremely difficult stages where I like to stay up at the top when I think I'm about to get... Whew. Honestly, I think I may have lost more lives trying to put this class together on 8-2 than I have on any other stage. Even that 7-4 that was giving me fits. This stage is dirt simple after 8-2, so let's just enjoy this. And you know what? I think we have getting some luck too. Let's go back to Fluff one last time before we get out of here and take on the last stage here in Kung Fu Heroes for one last fact. You got a quick one, Fluff?
Here's one for our surf rock fans. The theme tune for most of the levels bears a striking resemblance to the Surfari's biggest hit, Wipeout.
I remember that, yeah. It definitely sounds familiar, and there you go. You could see everybody just crept up their speed right there at the end as it registered when that door flung open, or was about to. But the final stage here in Kung Fu Heroes, get that sword out. Kind of a bummer that we don't have $6. This would be a great place to spend them, but even the Uni-Gon is kind of afraid of the fireballs. You can see right there. We got some good stabs in on him. That's a good time to do it, actually. 81 miracle kicks, no reason to be precious with those now. But yeah, you can already see, like, this is not as difficult as 7-4 for whatever reason. I mean, the fireballs aren't great, but we can see them now thanks to the candle, I suppose. I guess that's what that was, but yeah, that beats just the open floor plan stage where it was just a lot of enemies that we had no chance of even hurting for the most part, without putting ourselves at serious risk for injury / death. But still, relying on the same advice Gary gave us what seems like eons ago, many stages ago at the very least, just avoiding that Uni-Gon. We're at $5. And we might have our first death here. This is getting a little nuts. Oh my goodness. My kingdom for a single $1. That just bounced off. That dragon head said no right there. That's where we are in this game. Alright, come on. Come to me, $. There we go. Alright. There's our P. If I could just... There we go. So satisfying, class. Get out of here, Uni-Gon. Just get that darn door open. Alright, the dragon did it. This will be so anticlimactic. There's the no death run. Alright. Revisiting this class was completely worth it for that alone. We did not manage to pull that off in our initial class on this game, but there she is, the beautiful Princess Min Min. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in these classes. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. Really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Have you beaten this game before? And do you even remember this game? Or again, have you played some of the other titles in the Super Chinese series from who used to be Culture Brain. But yeah, they've gone through a lot of names by now. But yeah, the game just resets at this point. They call it 9-1, but we know what's going on. Alright, that's our time. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.
I'll stick around knowing